Hey everyone, welcome to our research highlight for September. I can't believe it, this year is flying by. This month, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite articles. It's very timely for a couple of reasons. One, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, I'll share my desktop. So it's very timely because this article, one of the authors is Beth Fisher. She is a mentor of mine from University of Southern California. When I was in physical therapy school, she was a professor there. And then we became friends afterwards, partially because of our shared passion, working with people who have Parkinson's. She is one of the researchers who has published multiple studies looking at the effects of exercise in people with Parkinson's. This study in particular was one of the first studies that was published looking at changes in the brain for people who have Parkinson's. This article was published in 2008, so coming up on 20 years ago. So very exciting article. I just got off the treadmill. I just taught a cardio class online. So now I'm coming to talk about treadmill training and the benefits for people with Parkinson's. One thing I always like to show is that this is one of the articles that you can get up to free full text. So if you type in, actually I want to go down on this, up on this so that I can see the title. So if you type into Google, the effect of exercise training in improving motor performance, you can text some amount of the title. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. Hopefully you will see NIH come up. You can click on that title and then over on the right side, free full text. Then you are going to click to download the PDF, and then it's going to open the PDF here. So you could read it, you could download it, you could print it, you could read it yourself, you could take it to your neurologist to share the cool research showing that exercise is beneficial in many different ways. So I'm going to come back to this copy that I already had downloaded on my computer though, because I've highlighted, not able to go through and talk about the whole article or all the details because that would be a very long video, and I'm trying to be respectful of your time and efficient. So the title of the article is The Effect of Exercise Training in Improving Motor Performance and Cortical Motor Excitability in People with Early Parkinson's Disease. So the objective to obtain preliminary data on the effects of high-intensity exercise on functional performance with people with Parkinson's relative to exercise at low and no intensity, and to determine whether improved performance is accompanied by alterations in cortical motor excitability as measured through transcranial magnetic stimulation. So TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, is a non-invasive way to measure brain activity. So it requires kind of wearing, it looks a little bit like a swim cap. And then there's, I don't even know exactly what we'd call it. If you would say electrical shocks never sound like a good thing, but there is stimulation produced by that swim cap like device that is worn on the head. And then it's able to measure the response and the excitability in the brain. So in this study, they had 30 people with Parkinson's. It was early, people within 3 years of being diagnosed, Hoehn-Yahr stage 1 or 2. So that means symptoms on one or both sides of the body, but without significant balance deficits. The interventions, the subjects were randomized to high-intensity treadmill training or low-intensity exercise or no-intensity education. So there were 3 groups that people were randomized to. In the 2 exercise groups, they completed 24 exercise sessions over 8 weeks. So 3 times a week for 8 weeks. And the subjects in the 0 intensity group had 6 educational classes over 8 weeks. The main outcome measure was looking at the UPDRS, the measurement of Parkinson's symptoms. They also looked at biomechanic analysis of self-selected and fast walking and sit-to-stand task, and cortical motor excitability was assessed with cortical silent period durations in response to the single pulse TMS. So results: a small improvement in total and motor UPDRS was observed in all groups. High-intensity group subjects showed post-exercise increases in gait speed, so how fast they could walk, step and stride length, hip and ankle joint excursions during self-selected and fast gait, and improved weight distribution during sit-to-stand tests. So they saw functional improvements in their movement. Improvements in gait and sit-to-stand measurements were not consistently observed in the low and zero intensity groups. The high intensity group showed lengthening in CSP in that cortical silent period. So the conclusions, the findings suggest that dose-dependent benefits of exercise and that high-intensity exercise can normalize corticomotor excitability in early Parkinson's. So the difference between healthy controls and people with Parkinson's is that people with Parkinson's actually have what's seen as a hyperexcitability. And so that's what they're looking at here. And they showed that the high intensity exercise normalized that excitability and made it more like healthy controls. So this is one of the first studies that was published looking at high intensity exercise and changes in the brain and neuroplasticity and what was possible. So if you download the article, definitely reading the background is always interesting. Even when they published back in 2008, quite a while ago, there were multiple studies showing basic research and clinical studies in humans showing that high intensity exercise may be important in promoting activity-dependent neuroplasticity in the injured brain. Some of the earlier work was done in people who had a stroke and other changes in the brain. That research has been happening for longer. The research in people with Parkinson's, especially looking at brain changes, is a bit more recent. More interesting information there, but I'm not going to go through all the details. Procedures I thought was relevant. So the high intensity group subjects were randomized. The people who were randomized to the high intensity group participated in 24 sessions. And this is the BWSTT is body weight supported treadmill training. So they actually had a harness on, providing a bit of support to their body weight. And also the harnesses really just provide safety so that people can push themselves and walk faster or possibly even jog on a treadmill, which they otherwise might not feel comfortable doing. And it really allows you to push the intensity level. Otherwise on a treadmill, there is, a pretty significant safety aspect that we want to make. Safety is always the most important. We want to make sure that people are safe when they're exercising, and a harness is a great way. We have harnesses over our treadmills. It is not body weight support treadmill or body weight support over the treadmills here at Rogue. It's just a safety harness that we kind of tighten up just to make sure it's snug and it's not moving around too much, but it is there for safety. So if someone was to trip or lose their balance or feel dizzy or anything happened, even if they were to fall, they would just be caught in the harness and there would be no consequences. So for many people, whether they feel a little unsure about a treadmill or if we are a little bit unsure about their balance, we will start using a harness. Some people use harnesses long-term, all the time while they're here to make sure they're safe. And some people start using a harness and don't need it after a while. But it really helps in being able to do treadmill training. The bike is a great way to do high intensity aerobic exercise as well, but it is different. Walking is something that we all really want to be able to do. That's how we get around. And so when you do your exercise on a treadmill, you can do high intensity exercise and also work on your walking. Whereas on a bike, you're doing high intensity exercise, but you're not necessarily working on a skill that is really important. The goal of each treatment session for the high intensity was to have the participant reach and maintain a MET level greater than 3 METs. METs is one way of measuring intensity. And they were looking at heart rate and they were going for 75% of heart rate max. They were looking at people having good mechanics. So when we're exercising, it's not just what we do. It's not just about the high intensity. We do want to have good quality movements as well. And the end goal was at least by session 24, if not earlier, that each person was able to walk on the treadmill continuously for 45 minutes within the above MET level range. But people were allowed to rest if necessary. And in some other subsequent studies, like the SPARKS-3 study that is happening right now, they're also doing high intensity. They are looking at people doing this high intensity exercise for 6 months, and they actually get 2 months to work up to that high intensity level, and then they continue exercising at that high intensity level. So I think this study, may have just shown the improvements while people were kind of improving their fitness level, and who knows what we would have seen if they had gotten the opportunity to exercise longer. Progression on the treadmill system occurred in a number of different ways. They decreased if the person was using some actual body weight support, they decreased that. They increased the speed on the treadmill. If they were getting any physical assistance from the physical therapist, that decreased. The time on the treadmill increased. So there were a number of ways that the exercise could be progressed in challenge level over the 8 weeks. The physical therapist was the one who was making changes, of course, working with the person. The low intensity group focused on things like passive range of motion and stretching, active range of motion, balance activities, walking, resistance training, practice of functional activities like sit to stand. But everything was kept at a lower intensity level. So they were moving around, and these activities were picked because that is what traditional physical therapy had included at the time. Then the zero intensity group was 1 hour education classes taken over an 8-week period, looking at quality of life, stress and coping, improving in memory, non-motor features of Parkinson's, etc., but no exercise. So for assessments, they looked at UPDRS and Hoehn-Yahr staging, functional assessments, walking test, sit to stand, and then the transcranial magnetic stimulation. So this is a complex scientific discussion about the way of measuring cortical motor excitability. This is not a test that is used clinically very often. It requires a whole setup and kind of screening for safety and everything. So it's not something that is used clinically very often, but it is used in research as a way to, kind of access brain activity non-invasively. Let's see. So I thought I highlighted a little bit more. So there's a lot of discussion about the data analysis and then the results. No adverse events. People were able to work up to higher intensity levels. And then looking in more detail at the transcranial magnetic stimulation results. And then discussion is when they kind of take the scientific results and discuss it in a way that is a little bit more understandable for the average person. So they found that in this study, they found that people with Parkinson's participating in the high intensity treadmill training improved their gait parameters, how they were moving, just flipping back and forth. They looked clinically and at motor performance. Okay, this this PDF keeps jumping back and forth. It's making it hard for me to look at. Let's see, there was a part down here that I wanted to look at within the discussion. There we go. So when it comes to the TMS measurement, so they wanted an important objective of the study was to examine high intensity exercise and is it accompanied by central nervous system changes? This would indicate that neuroplasticity was occurring. So using TMS, they found lengthening of the maximal cortical silent period in all subjects in the high intensity exercise group that was not consistently observed in subjects in the zero and low intensity group. This finding suggests that intensity may be an important exercise parameter for facilitating activity-dependent neuroplasticity in association with improved motor performance. So at this point, almost 20 years later, there have been quite a few additional studies that show us, yes, high intensity matters for a lot of different reasons. That's what we've been covering in these research highlights. This is just another one. It's one of the first ones. It's one of my mentor's papers. And it's a really cool early look at neuroplasticity. So among TMS studies examining corticomotor excitability in patients with Parkinson's, cortical silent period durations are among the most consistent abnormalities reported. So this is why they chose to look at it, with generally shorter duration associated with greater Parkinson's symptoms. The cortical silent period durations are usually shorter in Parkinson's patients compared with controls, and within PD patients are shorter in the more affected side compared with the less affected side. Both corticosilent period durations and Parkinson's symptoms are sensitive to dopaminergic medication. Similar to the observed effects of high-intensity exercise, corticosilent period durations are prolonged in Parkinson's patients after taking levodopa, apomorphine, and pergolide, drugs known to improve effective symptoms or provide effective symptomatic relief in motor symptoms. So basically they're saying shorter silent period is consistently observed in people with Parkinson's. It matches up with greater symptoms, and the silent period extends with other treatments that help with symptoms. So that's all basically saying why this is an appropriate thing to measure with exercise. And what they saw consistently is that every single person in the high intensity group had a lengthening of their cortical silent period. And on average, it was lengthening. So that's what this graph is looking at. So in the zero intensity group, it was variable amongst people. But overall, the average was flat. In the low intensity group, they actually saw a shortening and there wasn't big change. One person had a significant change, which affected it. But in the high intensity group, each individual had a lengthening of their corticosilent period, and the average was a lengthening. So that shows an improvement, and it's normalizing towards what is seen in healthy controls and what is seen with other types of treatment. So very exciting conclusions. The interest to promote neuroplasticity in Parkinson's as a means for eliciting improvement in motor performance has underscored the importance in identifying those exercise parameters that are essential for promoting activity-dependent neuroplasticity. Findings from our study suggest a potential role in intensity of exercise in driving activity-dependent neuroplasticity and functional improvement in people with Parkinson's and warrants further investigation. To our knowledge, this is the first study to show that people with Parkinson's can engage high level and the first in both measures of brain and behavior. People with Parkinson's of high intensity non-physiologic therapeutic modalities may be designed to delay or reverse disease progression in idiopathic Parkinson's. So this study came out a long ago. Since then, there have been many additional studies looking at different areas of neuroplasticity showing improvement as well. This is the first one, and I think it's an important one to know about and hopefully find it motivating to increase your intensity with exercise. Consider utilizing a treadmill for that exercise. If you feel like you need a harness, we do have people who have set up a harness at home in their garage or in their house, have a contractor, connect it to a load-bearing support. Otherwise, you could access physical therapy in your community and look for a place that has a harness over a treadmill to get started. If you don't feel the need for a harness, then utilizing a regular treadmill, get started and build your endurance. Do whatever feels comfortable to start with and just build that baseline fitness level. And then after a period of time, keep working on pushing that intensity level through increasing the incline and the speed. Do intervals to keep it interesting and help you be able to push harder during the harder intervals and take it a little bit easier during the lower intensity intervals. Consider joining our membership. We do cardio workouts 3 times a week utilizing equipment live, and we record those classes and upload them to a video library so you can have support in completing this type of exercise. If you have any questions, feel free to comment under this video or send me an email at claire@roguept.com. I hope you're motivated. If you haven't exercised already today, go do something now, and I'll see you next time.